In a small, sleepy town surrounded by thick forests and rolling hills, there lived a young girl named Emma. She was only 17 years old, but her life had already taken a turn that most people couldn't imagine happening to someone so young. Emma was a teenage mother, raising her baby boy Liam all by herself. Her days were filled with endless chores, feeding the baby, changing diapers, washing clothes, and trying to find time for odd jobs just to pay the rent. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was exhausting, lonely, and overwhelming. Emma's story began months earlier when she discovered she was pregnant. At first, she tried to hide it, hoping no one would notice as her stomach grew bigger under baggy sweaters. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. When her parents found out, they were furious. They shouted at her, blaming her for ruining their reputation in the tight-knit community. "How could you be so careless?" her mother screamed, tears streaming down her face. Her father refused to even look at her. Eventually, they gave her an ultimatum: either give up the baby or leave their house. Heartbroken but determined to keep her child, Emma packed a few belongings into a duffel bag and walked out the door. Liam's father, Jake, hadn't been much help either. At first, he promised to stand by Emma, saying he'd take care of her and the baby. But as the months went by, his promises turned hollow. He stopped answering her calls and texts, and eventually, he disappeared completely. No explanations, no apologies, just silence. Emma was left to face everything alone. Now, living in a tiny, run-down apartment on the edge of town, Emma spent her days juggling responsibilities that felt far too heavy for someone her age. The apartment was cramped and cold, with peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet that dripped constantly. The faint smell of dampness lingered in every corner, no matter how hard she scrubbed. Still, it was home, at least for now. On nights when Liam wouldn't stop crying, Emma sat by his crib, rocking him gently and humming lullabies until her voice cracked. Other times, she cried silently into her pillow, wondering why life had become so unfair. The hardest part wasn't the physical work. It was the loneliness. Everywhere she went, people stared at her. At the grocery store, cashiers glanced at her stroller and whispered behind their hands. Neighbors avoided making eye contact, shaking their heads disapprovingly, as if her situation was somehow contagious. Even at the park where mothers gathered with their children, Emma felt like an outsider. The other moms chatted about preschools and playdates while she struggled just to afford formula and diapers. She wanted to join their conversations to feel like she belonged, but something always held her back, a mixture of shame and fear of judgment. One chilly afternoon, as golden leaves swirled around her feet, Emma decided to take Liam to the park. She bundled him up in his little coat and hat, strapped him into the stroller, and set off down the winding path. The air was crisp, and the sky was painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun dipped lower on the horizon. For a brief moment, Emma allowed herself to relax. Watching Liam's chubby cheeks flush pink from the cool breeze brought a rare smile to her face. As she pushed the stroller along the paved path, she noticed an elderly man sitting on a bench nearby. His hair was wild and silver, sticking out in every direction like he'd just woken up. He wore mismatched clothes, a bright red sweater over plaid pants, and thick glasses perched crookedly on his nose. What caught Emma's attention, though, was the way he seemed to be watching her. Not in a creepy or threatening way, but more like he was curious, studying her with interest. At first, Emma felt uneasy. Was he judging her too? Did he recognize her as the teen mom everyone talked about? She lowered her gaze and quickened her pace, hoping to avoid any interaction. But then, something unexpected happened. The man smiled warmly and waved at her. It wasn't a smug or pitying wave. It was genuine, friendly. Startled, Emma hesitated before nodding politely and continuing on her way. Even after she passed him, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was significant. There was something different about the man, something kind and approachable that made her wonder who he was. Little did Emma know, this quirky stranger would soon become a pivotal figure in her life, offering her not just friendship but also hope during her darkest moments. For now, though, Emma returned home, her mind replaying the image of the smiling man on the bench. As she tucked Liam into his crib and turned off the lights, she couldn't help but think about how strange life could be. Just when she thought she was utterly alone, someone new appeared on the scene. Maybe, just maybe, things weren't as hopeless as they seemed. The next morning, Emma woke up to the sound of Liam gurgling softly in his crib. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, casting golden streaks across the worn carpet. Despite the early hour, she felt a strange sense of anticipation, lingering thought about the elderly man from the park. His warm smile and friendly wave had stayed with her throughout the night, like a small spark of light in an otherwise dark room. Emma pushed those thoughts aside as she got ready for the day. She dressed Liam in his favorite onesie, a hand-me-down with tiny dinosaurs printed on it, and bundled him into the stroller. The chilly autumn air greeted them as they stepped outside, and Emma decided to take the same route to the park again. Part of her hoped she might see the man once more, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was just the desire to feel seen by someone who didn't judge her. When they arrived at the park, the scene was much the same as the day before. Children laughed as they chased each other around the swings, while parents chatted idly on benches. And there he was, the elderly man, sitting in the exact same spot, watching the world go by with a content expression on his face. Today he wore a green cardigan over his plaid pants, and his glasses were slightly askew, giving him an endearing, absent-minded look. As Emma hesitated near the path, unsure whether to approach him, the man noticed her immediately. His eyes lit up behind his thick lenses, and he waved enthusiastically. "Well, if it isn't my new friend," he called out, his voice carrying a cheerful lilt. Emma froze for a moment, surprised that he remembered her. Then, summoning her courage, she walked over to the bench. "Hi," she said quietly, shifting Liam's stroller closer so the baby wouldn't roll away. "Good morning to you both," the man replied, leaning forward to get a better look at Liam. "And who is this little fellow? He looks like quite the charmer." Emma smiled faintly. "This is Liam, he's 6 months old." "What a handsome boy," the man exclaimed, clapping his hands together softly. "I'm Mr. Abernathy, but everyone calls me Abe. And you are?" "I'm Emma," she said, still feeling a bit awkward. She wasn't used to strangers being so openly kind. "Well, Emma, it's a pleasure to meet you properly," Abe said, extending a hand. After a brief pause, Emma shook it, surprised by how firm yet gentle his grip was. "Now tell me, how does a young mother like yourself spend her days?" The question caught Emma off guard. No one had ever asked her that before, not genuinely anyway. Most people only wanted to know the sensational details of her life. "How did you end up pregnant? So young. Where's the father? What are you going to do now?" But Abe's tone was different. It was curious, not prying. Interested, not judgmental. I take care of Liam," Emma began hesitantly. "And I work part-time at the diner downtown. Just enough to pay the bills." Abe nodded thoughtfully. "That sounds like a lot to handle. You must be very strong." Emma shrugged, brushing off the compliment. She didn't feel strong. If anything, she felt weak most days, barely keeping herself together. But Abe seemed determined to keep the conversation going. "You know," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small bag of trail mix, "life has a way of testing us. Sometimes it throws challenges our way to see what we're made of, but it also sends helpers along the way. You just have to keep your eyes open for them." He offered her the bag. "Want some? Nuts are good brain fuel." Emma couldn't help but laugh. There was something oddly comforting about Abe's quirky demeanor. She took a peanut from the bag, popping it into her mouth. "Thanks," she said, feeling a little less guarded. They talked for nearly an hour, sharing stories about their lives. Abe told her about his late wife, Margaret, who had loved gardening and baking pies. He spoke fondly of their adventures, traveling across the country in a beat-up RV, stopping wherever the road took them. "She always said I was too curious for my own good," Abe chuckled. "But curiosity keeps you young, doesn't it?" In turn, Emma found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She told him about her strained relationship with her parents, Jake's disappearance, and the loneliness that often weighed her down. Abe listened intently, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. When she finished, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've been through a lot, Emma," he said gently. "But let me tell you something. Resilience isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up every time you do. And from what I can see, you're doing exactly that." His words struck a chord deep within her. For the first time in months, Emma felt like someone truly understood her struggles without pitying her. As they parted ways that afternoon, Abe handed her a small card with his phone number scribbled on it. "If you ever need anything or even just someone to talk to, you call me, okay?" he said earnestly. No strings attached. Emma accepted the card, touched by his kindness. She doubted she'd actually reach out. He was practically a stranger after all, but she tucked the card safely into her pocket anyway. As she pushed Liam's stroller back home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something important had shifted inside her. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. Over the next few days, Emma found herself thinking about Abe more often than she expected. His warmth and wisdom lingered in her mind, especially during moments when she felt overwhelmed. One particularly rough evening, after spending hours trying to calm a fussy Liam, she impulsively pulled out the card and dialed the number. To her, "Surprise," Abe answered on the second ring. "Emma, how are you holding up?" He greeted her warmly as if they were old friends. I'm fine," she stammered, embarrassed to admit she needed help. "It's just, today was tough." "Well, why don't you bring that handsome boy of yours over tomorrow?" Abe suggested. "I'll show you my garden. Fresh air does wonders for babies and tired moms too." Reluctantly, Emma agreed. The following afternoon she arrived at Abe's house, a charming cottage tucked away at the edge of town. His backyard was a riot of colors, filled with flowers, vegetables, and wind chimes that tinkled softly in the breeze. "This is beautiful," Emma admitted, marveling at the vibrant blooms. "It's my pride and joy," Abe said proudly. "Now let's see that little guy." He took Liam into his arms with surprising ease, cooing softly as the baby gazed up at him curiously. For the first time in months, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. They spent the afternoon chatting, laughing, and sharing stories. By the time she left, she realized she hadn't felt this light in ages. Abe quickly became a regular presence in Emma's life. He babysat Liam when she needed to run errands, taught her how to grow herbs in her windowsill, and shared wisdom gleaned from his own long life. Slowly but surely, Emma began to rebuild her confidence. With Abe's encouragement, she started dreaming again. Dreaming of a future where she could provide more for Liam, where she could prove to herself and others that she was capable of overcoming anything life threw her way. Though she still faced challenges, Emma knew she wasn't alone anymore. Abe had shown her that kindness could transform lives, including her own. And as she watched Liam giggle in Abe's arms, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Life might have dealt her a difficult hand, but with support, love, and determination, she was learning to play it well. As the days turned into weeks, Emma found herself visiting Abe's charming cottage more and more often. Each time she stepped into his backyard, it felt like entering a magical world, a sanctuary filled with vibrant flowers, lush greenery, and the soothing sound of wind chimes swaying gently in the breeze. It was a stark contrast to her cramped, dimly lit apartment, and Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over her whenever she was there. Abe always greeted her with a warm smile and an open heart. He never judged her or made her feel small for being a teenage mother. Instead, he treated her like an equal, someone worthy of respect and kindness. Over time, their conversations grew deeper. They talked about everything from Liam's milestones, his first tooth had just come in, to Emma's dreams for the future. Slowly but surely, Abe became more than just a friendly neighbor. He became a mentor, a confidant, and even a surrogate grandfather to Liam. One sunny afternoon, as Emma sat on a wooden bench watching Liam crawl around on a patchwork quilt, Abe approached her with a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "You know, he said, handing her a cup of lemonade. "I've been thinking." "About what?" Emma asked curiously, sipping the refreshing drink. "About you," Abe replied, sitting down beside her. "You're juggling so much, right? Now raising Liam, working at the diner, keeping your head above water. But I can tell you want more out of life, don't you?" Emma hesitated, caught off guard by his directness. She stared at Liam, who was happily chewing on a dandelion leaf, and sighed. "Of course I do," she admitted softly. "But it's hard to think about the future when I'm barely surviving the present." "I understand," Abe said, nodding thoughtfully. "But here's the thing, you don't have to figure it all out at once. Life is a series of small steps, one foot in front of the other, and sometimes you need someone to show you where to start." Emma looked at him, unsure of what he meant. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to help you take that first step," Abe explained. "Let's start with something simple. What's one thing you'd love to do if you didn't have to worry about money or time?" Emma frowned, considering the question. For a long moment she remained silent, letting the possibilities swirl in her mind. Finally she whispered, "I'd go back to school." Her answer surprised even herself. She hadn't dared to voice that dream aloud in years, not since her parents kicked her out and her old life crumbled around her. But deep down, she knew it was true. Education had always been important to her. Before Liam came along, she'd dreamed of becoming a teacher, of inspiring children the way some of her own teachers had inspired her. Now, though, it seemed like an impossible goal. To her surprise, Abe didn't dismiss her dream. Instead, his face lit up with excitement. "That's wonderful," he exclaimed. "Do you know how many people your age would give anything for that kind of clarity? You already know what you want. That's half the battle." "But it's not realistic," Emma protested. "I can't afford tuition, and I don't have time to study with Liam and work taking up all my hours." Abe waved a hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Let's break it down. First, we'll look into online programs. They're flexible and often cheaper than traditional schools. Second, I can babysit Liam while you attend classes or study. And third," he paused dramatically, pulling out a notebook from his pocket, "we'll make a plan, together." Emma blinked, stunned by his enthusiasm. No one had ever believed in her this way before, not even herself. Still, doubt lingered in her mind. "What if I fail?" she murmured, voicing the fear that had haunted her for months. Abe leaned forward, his expression serious. "Failure isn't the end, Emma. It's part of the process. Every great success story is built on a foundation of failures. The key is to keep going, no matter what." His words resonated deeply with her. For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to imagine a different future. One where she wasn't just scraping by but thriving. With Abe's encouragement, she decided to take the leap. The next week, Abe accompanied Emma to the local library, where they spent hours researching online high school diploma programs. To their delight, they discovered several affordable options designed specifically for students with busy schedules. One program stood out. It offered flexible deadlines, personalized support from tutors, and the ability to complete coursework entirely from home. Best of all, it was within Emma's budget. "I think this is it," Emma said, her voice trembling with excitement as she clicked the enrollment button on the computer screen. "I'm actually doing this." "You sure are," Abe said proudly, patting her shoulder. "And I'll be right here cheering you on every step of the way." True to his word, Abe became Emma's biggest cheerleader. He helped her create a schedule that balanced studying, parenting, and work. On evenings when Liam was asleep, Abe babysat while Emma focused on her assignments. When she struggled with math problems or essay topics, he encouraged her to reach out to her online tutors, and occasionally lent his own wisdom when needed. "Math isn't my strong suit either," he joked, "but we'll figure it out together." Slowly, but surely, Emma began to regain her confidence. Completing each assignment gave her a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she realized she was capable of more than just surviving. She could thrive. Despite her progress, not everything was smooth sailing. There were days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. After a long shift at the diner, followed by hours of studying, Emma often collapsed onto her bed, wondering if she was pushing herself too hard. Some nights she cried quietly into her pillow, afraid she wouldn't be able to keep up. On one particularly rough evening, after receiving a lower-than-expected grade on an English essay, Emma called Abe in tears. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this," she sobbed. "Maybe I should just quit." Abe listened patiently, letting her vent her frustrations. Then, in his usual calm and reassuring tone, he said, "Emma, let me ask you something. Do you remember why you started this journey?" She sniffled. "Because I want a better life for Liam and me. And has that reason changed?" "No." "Then hold on to it," Abe urged. "Every challenge you face is shaping you into the person you're meant to become. Don't give up now, not when you're closer than ever to achieving your dreams." His words gave Emma the strength to push through. The next day, she revised her essay, incorporating feedback from her tutor, and resubmitted it. This time, her effort paid off. She earned a higher grade and glowing comments from her instructor. As the months passed, Emma's determination only grew stronger. She completed her first semester with flying colors, earning straight A's, despite the odds stacked against her. Her classmates in the online program, most of whom were adults balancing families and careers, praised her dedication and offered words of encouragement. For the first time in her life, Emma felt like she belonged somewhere, like she was part of a community that understood her struggles and celebrated her victories. Meanwhile, Liam continued to grow and flourish under Abe's watchful eye. The elderly man doted on the baby, teaching him how to stack blocks, read picture books, and explore the wonders of nature. Watching them together filled Emma with gratitude. She couldn't imagine where she'd be without Abe's unwavering support. One crisp autumn morning, as Emma sat on Abe's porch sipping coffee and grading practice exams, she reflected on how far she'd come. Just a year ago, she'd been drowning in loneliness and despair. Now she had a purpose, a plan, and people who believed in her. Life still wasn't easy, but it was infinitely brighter. "You're doing amazing, kiddo," Abe said, joining her on the porch. "I'm proud of you." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you, Abe. I couldn't have done any of this without you." He chuckled, waving a hand modestly. "Oh, nonsense. You're the one putting in the hard work. I'm just here to remind you that you're stronger than you think." For the first time in a long while, Emma truly believed him. With Abe by her side, she knew she could overcome anything. And as she gazed out at the colorful leaves swirling in the wind, she felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, one step at a time. As Emma continued to make strides in her education and personal growth, she couldn't help but notice that certain shadows from her past still lingered. Despite her progress, memories of her strained relationship with her parents and Jake's abandonment haunted her. These unresolved wounds weighed heavily on her heart, even as she worked tirelessly to build a brighter future for herself and Liam. One evening, after finishing an assignment for her online classes, Emma scrolled through social media absent-mindedly. The screen was flooded with photos of her former classmates celebrating their high school graduation, a milestone she had missed because of her circumstances. In the pictures, they were dressed in caps and gowns, hugging each other and tossing their hats into the air. They looked so happy, so carefree. Emma felt a pang of envy and sadness as she stared at the images. She leaned back in her chair, tears welling up in her eyes. "Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward except me?" she whispered to herself. "What if I'm just stuck here forever?" Her thoughts spiraled downward. She imagined what her life might have been like if she hadn't gotten pregnant, if she hadn't lost her family's support or been abandoned by Jake. Would she be standing alongside her friends, smiling in those graduation photos? Would she already be pursuing her dream of becoming a teacher? Or would she still be the same person, just taking a different path? The weight of these questions became unbearable. That night, as Liam slept peacefully in his crib, Emma sat alone, in the dim light of her apartment, grappling with feelings of regret and self-doubt. For the first time in months, She allowed herself to confront the pain she had buried deep inside. It wasn't easy, but she knew she couldn't move forward until she faced the past head-on. The next day, during one of her regular visits to Abe's garden, Emma decided to open up about her struggles. She found him pruning his rose bushes, humming softly to himself. As usual, he greeted her warmly, offering her a cup of tea before settling down beside her on the porch. "You seem quieter than usual today," Abe observed, studying her face. "What's on your mind?" Emma hesitated, unsure where to begin. Finally, she took a deep breath and said, "I've been thinking about my parents, and Jake, about everything that happened." Abe nodded encouragingly. "Go on." "I know. I've come a long way since then," Emma continued, her voice trembling slightly. "But sometimes I can't shake the feeling that I ruined my life. Everyone else seems to be succeeding, and I'm still struggling to catch up. What if I never really get there?" Abe listened intently, giving her space to express her emotions without interrupting. When she finished, he placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in feeling this way, Emma. Life has a way of making us question our choices, especially when things don't go as planned. But let me tell you something. Your worth isn't defined by your mistakes or your past. It's defined by how you choose to move forward." His words resonated deeply, but Emma still struggled to forgive herself. Sensing her inner turmoil, Abe decided to push her gently toward healing. "If you're ready," he said softly, "maybe it's time to revisit some of those old wounds. Sometimes, facing the past is the only way to truly leave it behind." Emma frowned. "How am I supposed to do that? My parents won't even talk to me, and Jake is long gone." "Start small," Abe suggested. "Maybe write a letter to your parents, just to get your thoughts out. You don't have to send it unless you want to. Or maybe visit your old school. Talk to someone who can guide you, like your principal or a counselor. Take it one step at a time." Though hesitant, Emma agreed to try. Over the next few days, she poured her heart into writing a letter to her parents. She expressed her love for them, explained how much she missed them, and apologized for disappointing them. Writing the words was cathartic, but she ultimately decided not to send the letter. Not yet. Instead, she tucked it away in a drawer, vowing to revisit it when she felt stronger. Encouraged by Abe's advice, Emma also reached out to her former high school principal, Mrs. Thompson. Though nervous about the conversation, she was pleasantly surprised by Mrs. Thompson's warmth and understanding. After explaining her situation, Emma learned about resources available to students who wanted to complete their education later in life. Mrs. Thompson offered guidance on enrolling in adult education programs and promised to check in on her progress. With renewed determination, Emma threw herself into her studies, balancing coursework with parenting and work. She started attending virtual study groups organized by her online program, connecting with peers who shared similar challenges. Slowly but surely, she began to rebuild her confidence and sense of purpose. Despite her efforts, confronting the past wasn't easy. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes in her closet, Emma stumbled upon a photo album filled with memories from her childhood. Flipping through the pages, she saw pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, and holiday gatherings, all moments she cherished deeply. But as she turned to the last few pages, the photos stopped abruptly. There were no pictures of her senior year, no memories of prom or graduation, just emptiness. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she closed the album, overwhelmed by grief. She called Abe immediately, needing someone to talk to. He answered on the first ring, his voice calm and reassuring. "What's wrong, kiddo?" he asked. "I found this old photo album," Emma choked out between sobs. "It reminded me of everything I lost, everything I'll never get back." Abe listened patiently, letting her cry until she ran out of tears. Then, in his gentle way, he said, "Loss is painful, Emma, but it doesn't mean you can't create new memories. Every chapter of your life is important, even the hard ones. They shape who you are today." His words gave her strength. That Evening, Emma grabbed a blank notebook and began documenting her current journey. She wrote about her struggles, her triumphs, and the people who supported her along the way, especially Abe and Liam. As she filled the pages with her story, she realized she was creating something beautiful out of the broken pieces of her past. Weeks turned into months, and Emma continued to heal. With Abe's encouragement, she joined a local support group for young mothers, where she met others navigating similar challenges. Sharing her experiences with them helped her feel less alone and more empowered. She also started volunteering at a community center, tutoring children in reading and math. Teaching came naturally to her, reigniting her passion for education. Through it all, Abe remained a constant source of support. Whether he was babysitting Liam, helping her practice for exams, or simply listening when she needed to vent, he was always there. His unwavering belief in her inspired her to keep going, even on the hardest days. One crisp fall morning, as Emma stood in front of her mirror preparing for another day of classes, she caught a glimpse of herself. For the first time in years, she didn't see a teenage mother struggling to survive. She saw a strong, resilient woman building a brighter future for herself and her son, and she knew, without a doubt, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Years passed, and Emma's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined during those early, difficult days of motherhood. The hard work, sacrifices, and determination that had once felt overwhelming now bore fruit in the form of a brighter, more fulfilling future. Her journey was far from easy, but every challenge she faced only strengthened her resolve to create a better life for herself and Liam. On a crisp spring morning, Emma stood on a stage in a large auditorium filled with cheering voices. Rows of proud graduates sat behind her dressed in caps and gowns, their faces glowing with accomplishment. As her name echoed through the room, Emma stepped forward, clutching her diploma tightly in both hands. Tears streamed down her cheeks as applause erupted around her. Beside her, Liam clapped enthusiastically, his bright eyes shining with pride. At just 6 years old, he didn't fully understand the magnitude of what his mom had achieved. But he knew it was something special. In the audience, Abe beamed, tears streaming down his weathered face. He had watched Emma grow from a scared teenager into a confident, capable woman. Today marked the culmination of her efforts, a testament to her resilience and perseverance. As Emma descended the stage, she hugged Liam tightly before making her way to Abe, who embraced her warmly. "You did it, kiddo," Abe whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." Emma smiled through her tears. "I couldn't have done it without you, Abe. You've been my rock this whole time." After graduation, Emma landed a teaching position at a local elementary school. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. Walking into her classroom for the first time, she marveled at the colorful bulletin boards, neatly arranged desks, and shelves lined with books. She felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing she would inspire children the way her own teachers had inspired her. Her students adored her. They were drawn to her warmth, patience, and genuine care for their well-being. During parent-teacher conferences, parents often expressed gratitude for how much their children enjoyed learning under her guidance. One mother even told Emma, "You remind me of myself when I was younger, trying to find my place in the world. Seeing you succeed gives me hope for my own kids." Meanwhile, Liam thrived under his mother's influence. He was a curious, energetic boy who loved exploring the outdoors and asking endless questions about how things worked. Thanks to Abe's nurturing, he developed a love for gardening and nature. On weekends, the three of them often visited Abe's cottage, where Liam ran freely among the flowers and wind chimes, laughing and playing as if he owned the place. Abe himself remained a cherished part of their lives. Though his hair had grown whiter and his steps slower, his spirit remained as vibrant as ever. He continued to share stories of his travels with Margaret, inspiring Emma and Liam to dream big and embrace life's adventures. In return, they brought joy and companionship into his golden years, ensuring he never felt lonely. As Emma settled into her new role as a teacher, she made it her mission to help others facing challenges similar to hers. Inspired by Abe's generosity, she started volunteering at a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting young mothers. There, she offered guidance, encouragement, and practical advice to women navigating the complexities of parenthood and education. One evening, after leading a workshop for teenage moms, Emma received a heartfelt thank you note from one of the participants. "You've shown me that it's possible to chase my dreams even when life feels impossible," the young woman wrote. "Thank you for being someone who truly understands." Reading the note brought tears to Emma's eyes. She realized that her struggles hadn't been in vain. They had given her the empathy and insight needed to uplift others. By sharing her story, she hoped to inspire other young mothers to believe in themselves and take the first step toward a better future. Despite her successes, Emma never forgot where she came from. Occasionally, memories of her strained relationship with her parents surfaced, reminding her of the pain she once endured. Though she still hadn't reconciled with them, she held on to hope that someday they might see how much she had grown. Until then, she focused on building a family of her own, with Liam and Abe at its center. One summer afternoon, as Emma tended to her flourishing garden, a gift from Abe, she reflected on how far she'd come. What had started as a chance encounter in the park had blossomed into a lifelong friendship. Abe had taught her that kindness could transform lives, including her own. Through his unwavering support, she had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed. As Liam ran toward her, giggling and holding a handful of wildflowers, Emma knelt down to hug him. "What are these for?" she asked, smiling. "For you, Mommy," Liam exclaimed, pressing the flowers into her hand. "Because you're the best mommy ever." Emma laughed, feeling her heart swell with love. Life might not have turned out the way she planned, but it had given her something far greater, a second chance to rewrite her story. With determination, courage, and the help of a quirky stranger-turned-family member, she had built a future brighter than she'd ever imagined. And so, surrounded by blooming flowers, laughter, and love, Emma knew she had found her true purpose. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a beacon of hope for others, proving that no matter how dark the night, dawn always breaks, and with it comes endless possibilities.